So in the Discord server I was in, I was presented with a set of tweets.
Who the fuck starts a
Video.
like that? I just sat down.
The first tweet you're seeing is an artist's depiction of them playing through Baldur's Gate 3. After they finish character creation and jump into the game, they realize that it's a turn-based RPG, a kind of game that they don't like. This is honestly a fine reason for not wanting to play a game. Not every genre will gel with a person. Just because a game is popular doesn't automatically mean you have to enjoy it. You can still acknowledge that a game is good even if you yourself didn't like playing it. Things start to get interesting once we move on to the next few screenshots, where under the reply section, a Twitter user by the name of CEO of Gay Bunnies says the following. I love turn-based RPGs, but I hate and despise it when a video game has dice rolls. I spent so long creating my character only to find out it was literally Dungeons and Dragons. Which, like, it actually is. It's literally a licensed franchise under the Dungeons and Dragons formula. It's always been D&D. Not only that, I'm not sure if the trailers have shown the dice roll mechanics, but considering that Baldur's Gate is a licensed franchise under the D&D formula, and D&D is a tabletop RPG that includes dice rolls, this game was definitely going to have dice rolls. But wait, there's more. We are then brought to the next screenshot, where we bear witness to a very interesting conversation between the CEO of Gay Bunnies and a new user who has entered the ring called Robot Fucker. It's Twitter, okay? You're gonna find names like this on the regular. Ladies, gentlemen, lovely NBs on the internet, I present to you a regular conversation on Twitter. How on earth did you not know the Dungeons & Dragons video game was gonna be Dungeons & Dragons? A question that we've all been asking. How the hell was I supposed to know when the only bit of advertising for the game I saw was a clip of a guy fucking a bear? Did you not, like, look at the store page before you got it? Like, genuinely, did you just see bears and immediately get it without reading or looking at anything else? I didn't get it. I was invited to play with my sugar daddy. Okay, I think that's enough Twitter for today. Now, why the hell did I show that whole Twitter thread? Well, one, because it's hella funny, I mean, come on. But also to provide context that some players don't like RPGs like Baldur's Gate 3. You're probably wondering why the hell I'm talking about Baldur's Gate 3 when the title talks about Pokemon players? Well, let's go back to the artist who started this thread with her comic, who, keep in mind, said that she didn't like turn-based RPGs. Cue the last and most important screenshot. Pokemon is my exception though. I will play those any day. Now, there's nothing wrong with having exceptions when it comes to games like likes and dislikes. I mean, I'm not here to dictate how you should enjoy your games. But this got me thinking about Pokemon gameplay-wise, and to be quite honest, if you take the time to think about it, Pokemon has dice rolls. Before we get to the main juicy part of this video, we should first touch base on randomness itself and why video games have this. Because whether you realize it or not, the majority of video games have some amount of randomness implemented. Randomness in video games can come in a variety of forms, from levels and combat encounters changing in every room in a roguelike, to accuracy in fire mode games that will make you have to change your strategy on the fly, or whatever the hell party games do, where you could be doing so well and then get fucked in the end by chance time because fuck you! Of course, randomness isn't always a necessity in video games to have. While some games like Mario Party heavily rely on randomness to make the game fun, other genres like fighting games have less of it, because really the randomness comes from the unknowingness of what your opponent will do and having to predict what they do and play around it constantly. There's a reason why Smash players, when playing competitively, turn off items, because the randomness the items bring make it less of a game of skill and more so Pikachu won the fight because he got the Lucky Smith and Wesson 500 to shoot Yoshi with. Point is, there is, to some degree, randomness in most, if not all, games because it helps keeps playthroughs fresh. As without randomness, every playthrough just winds up being the same, and it can get boring very, very quickly. RPGs are no different. Let's take a look at Baldur's Gate 3 for example, and one of its main mechanics, the dice roll. The dice roll is the main contributor to deciding how your entire playthrough plays out, from succeeding a skill check when conversing with an NPC, to deciding if an attack or spell hits, to even how much damage you deal from said attack or spell. This single mechanic holds supreme power over the player, making it so things don't always go the player's way. There is an option to make the dice rolls more fair, but the appearance of the dice is enough to convince some players not to play the game. But what does any of this have to do with Pokemon? I mean, after all, unlike Baldur's Gate 3, it's a children's game, so it has to be fairer. Surely, Pokemon doesn't and wouldn't have something such as a dice roll mechanic in their games. Well... Hey, so before we move on to the next section, shout out to my boyfriend for helping me record the Baldur's Gate 3 footage. I was gonna record on my own, but I had to uninstall it and play it through streaming since someone wanted me to play fucking Warframe, and so he pretty much owed me a favor. You know, I am incredibly thankful that he's willing to go through with recording a fucking 40+ minute session to help me out here. You know, it really just goes to show that you'll eventually find the one who is willing to do anything for you, and he pushed me off the roof, never mind. Going back to the actual topic of today's video, there's 100% for sure dice rolling mechanics of Pokemon. Let me explain. For the sake of consistency, we'll be using the most modern calculations that have been used when going over these mechanics. There are a couple of these examples, but let's start with the most obvious one to ease us into things: accuracy. Every move has a base value for its accuracy. That value is then multiplied by variables such as the user's accuracy and the opponent's evasion, to then output the Pokemon's accuracy. Typically, any moves that aren't just guaranteed hits with 100% accuracy tend to hit more, if not are guaranteed to hit, but don't hit as hard, which makes it a gamble to use a move that can do more damage but isn't a perfect 100, because as one wise YouTuber in the Pokemon community best puts it, if it is not 100% accurate, it is 50% accurate. Kinda like how a dice roll isn't always guaranteed to land the number you want. With Legend CA it gets a little weird because with the way the fighting system is set up, they get rid of the accuracy stat, but you still have to aim the move at the opponent, so there's still a good chance that the dice roll doesn't roll in your favor if your opponent manages to move out of the way. Next is damage. Every damaging move in Pokemon has a base power that gives a general sense of how strong that move is, but it doesn't guarantee that it will do that amount of damage. Instead, when the player uses that move, the base power is taken into this calculation, which then calculates the damage output.
What the hell is even that?
I know this is a lot to take in, and it's also confusing, but all we care about is one variable: random. After the initial calculation involving to determine the initial amount of damage the move can deal, the result is then multiplied by the variable random, which, as the name implies, is a random factor, specifically ranging between 85 and 100. Yeah, believe it or not, there's actually a range that is randomly chosen that impacts how strong a move can be. Essentially, it can be a low roll or a high roll. You may have seen Nuzlockers taking this into account and using online calculators because this can make or break a run, like a dice roll. But we're not done yet, because landing a crit also has its own calculation. It's honestly the simplest out of all the calculations discussed here though. Really, it's just a fixed percent that can be modified depending on if you're using a move with a high crit chance, or if you have a held item or using a dire hit to increase the crit chance. It comes in different stages where the lowest is 4.17%, or if you're crazy enough to build up to a high enough stage, just literally give yourself a guaranteed crit. So accuracy, damage, and of course a crit chance are all based on some kind of calculation that isn't always guaranteed, and you just have to pray that the luck will be in your favor to get the best output possible. Like a dice roll! Yeah, Pokemon does have dice rolling too, you just don't notice it because it's just a bunch of math behind the scenes going on. So if you ever had a moment where an opponent's Pokemon should have died but barely lived somehow, you can thank this damage calculation for that. So, now you know that there is indeed randomness implemented at the very least in damage calculation of Pokemon. Unless you, already knew that. And here I am, regurgitating what you already knew. Just pretend you didn't know about this whole time. Just pretend you didn't know about it. Ooh, you never knew about this damage calculation until this video. Ooh. Oh yeah. I suppose the main takeaway here should be that the argument of not liking Baldur's Gate 3 because of the dice rolls when Pokemon does is a little bit silly. Obviously, I don't know if that's exactly what the original artist's complaint, nor do I know whether or not the user commenting under the original artist post prefers Pokemon over any other RPG, but what I'm trying to say here is saying you don't like BG3 over Pokemon when both of them are similar mechanically is a bit of a silly argument to make. It should be noted that this isn't tied specifically to just Pokemon or Baldur's Gate 3. It's because the mechanics I've listed before can quite literally be applied to the majority, if not all, RPGs, not just turn-based RPGs. There's a good couple of action RPGs and strategy RPGs that you could argue have randomness that are similar, if not exactly like these mechanics. Now that we're all on the same page, knowing that Pokemon has dice rolls attached to it and a lot of RPGs have these similar dice rolls mechanics too, there's still one question that remains. Why? Why have these dice rolls implemented in the first place? I've already talked about how some game genres require less randomness than other genres, but in the case of RPGs, the randomness factor is small but can easily be noticed, so why? Well, to keep things interesting, of course. Imagine if the variation in damage output didn't exist, that every attack-based power was always guaranteed. Sure, it'd be easy to predict how much damage you'd be able to do, but after a bit, it'd just get a bit boring, wouldn't it? Air out your annoyances on how the damage variation has screwed you over in your playthroughs, but you can't deny that it made the battles more interesting. Just a small amount of randomness is necessary, as while you may not notice it, it's the key behind making every playthrough of yours different enough to be interesting. Going back to the original post, I think saying you prefer Pokemon over other turn-based RPGs because of the supposed dice rolls when Pokemon also has said dice rolls is a bit silly. Like I said before, while it may not be obvious, every turn-based RPG has dice rolls to them. It's not always in your face like in BG3. Not only that, but said randomness is important in keeping battles fresh and unique. Not just in Pokemon, Baldur's Gate 3 may not be as beginner-friendly as Pokemon games are, but because of the dice roll mechanics, it not only helps to make the game feel more like a D&D game, but just like RPGs, keeps playthroughs fresh, as not just battles, but also story moments won't always go the way that you intend. So yeah, there are dice rolls in Pokemon, it's just made of math rather than being a die. But there's still one point I want to make. A point I couldn't fit anywhere else because it wouldn't have fit the video topic. I understand why some people prefer Pokemon over other RPGs. Not only has it become more accessible for everyone, especially with the newer games, but it reigns king over the monster collection genre. Pokemon itself is also just such a beginner-friendly game that I wouldn't be surprised if Minigames' first RPG was a Pokemon game. And I would know, as someone who started their love for Pokemon with Platinum. I say this as a fan of not just Pokemon, but the RPG genre as a whole. Please give other RPGs a chance. There are so many amazing and innovative RPGs, not just the turn-based kind, out there for you to discover. Who knows? You might find another favorite RPG of yours out there. That's all I wanted to say. If you like this video, give this video a like. God, I need to work on that, how to work this part of the video better. Outro, whatever. And if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe and check out my other content as well. And if you have any thoughts to say about this topic, share your thoughts in the comments below. One more thing before I go. We've reached 70 subscribers, which I'll be honest, as someone who took like a year or so hiatus off of YouTube only to come back at the end of 2025, it's just crazy. I know it doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but the support does truly mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye!
Okay, first of all, the mic quality sounds different because I'm using a different set of headsets than I'm normally using. Secondly, sorry it's been so long since I last uploaded on this channel. Originally, the original setback was just me changing up my script since I didn't like how the original script turned out, since it didn't quite fit the channel. But then work came up, so I took a step back to focus on that, and when I finally got some free time, my laptop decided to explode. So not only did I have to wait to get a new laptop, but I also transfer everything to the new laptop. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to deal with. Anyway, sorry for the half a year delay, or however long it was since the last time I uploaded. Hopefully the wait between videos isn't as long as that one. Yeah. Anyways, bye!